Floor for Coach Frye, front row middle, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Move this up. Hi, Justin. 6 games through the season, it seems like the O-line's playing well overall. What are you most pleased with, and maybe what's one thing that you still feel like we got to get better at this?
Their weekly approach. These guys aren't settled with like, oh, we had a good game last week, let's go. Every week we come in and we find something on film that we need to attack, something that maybe wasn't as clean as we want, and they're looking for that. So that's been the best part. I think if you continue to do that, and as Ryan talks every week, right, it's a new challenge and a new game, and you can't rest on what you've done, and you got to work your details and fundamentals and technique, and these guys are looking for that every week. So that's been probably why, if you say it's been consistent, because on Mondays they show up and they've watched the tape, they've taken notes, they want to know what we can improve on, what we got to work that week, and then we attack that during the week, and they've done a really good job with that.
Is there something that you really want to get better at as you look at your O-line right now?
Just the basics. I mean, when we're supposed to run the ball, you got to run the ball, and we got to protect the quarterback, make sure the quarterback's protected. Staying physical, staying assignment sound. I mean, it sounds all basic, but that's what you got to do. You got to block them so they can't tackle them. And so whether we're throwing the ball or running the ball, we just got to make sure that we're continuing to do that at a high level.
Deep left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Your players have talked a lot since the end of last season about kind of the chip on their shoulder as far as succeeding, especially in short situations, third and short, fourth and short. Just where do you feel like the performance is right now? And was that something you picked up on early on when you got here, that sort of urgency that you felt about that?
I mean, not really to the back part of that, but I think what they're doing a good job of is situational awareness. Like understanding when it's a third and short call, when it's fourth and short call, and what the anticipating and those things. I think these guys are just growing every week, and like I said, once again, the information of why we're calling what we're calling, when we call it, what to look for. They've continued to grow in that area, so the situational awareness, I think, has helped those guys a lot, whereas it's just not another play, whether it be an inside zone, an outside zone, a quick game, a slide protection, but when we're calling it, what area of the field, what the situation on the clock is, they've done a really good job of kind of registering that, which has helped.
Fourth row middle, Andy Anders, Buckeye Sports Bulletin.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up what you said there. So situational awareness. What changes as an offensive lineman then, blocking for a third and short play versus blocking for a first and 10 play when you're running the ball?
Just the understanding of what the defense can maybe bring to you. Pad level, urgency, gap control. Understanding a P and 10 or a first and 10 may look a little different than a third and 1 or a third and 2. And so you may tighten up a technique. You may have a different call that carries in that situation. And it's just reps. I mean, it's with all those guys. I mean, you look across the board. I mean, we've said it 100 times, Paris is now playing the tackle. So he's gotten more reps under his belt. DeJuan's now a second-year full-time starter. He's seen some more of those looks. So, I sound like a broken record all the time when I talk, but they haven't gotten incrementally stronger or faster. The game is starting to slow down because they can register those little things that will help them play at a high level, and they're really starting to do that. And like I said, that's week in and week out. Next week they come in and it's not, all right, we played this team last week. It's the same. It's, coach, what's the answer? What are we looking for here? Because they really want to be bit into that.
It seems like a lot of the big chunk runs have come on that outside zone look where, it's maybe DeJuan and Paris kind of stringing out a run or collapsing a line to create a hole. Is there something in their skill set that helps facilitate that?
I mean, I can't really speak to that. Maybe we're doing that now, going back right now. You got a good chance in the bye week to look at what you've done well, what you haven't done well. Maybe there's some things that you think you've done really well statistically, or quality control is good, but have you executed those well, or is the defense misfit? I think for our guys, though, yeah, our tackles, they're big and athletic, right? So if we can put them in the best situations to run off the ball and have, whether they're double teaming or they're man blocking guys. But once again, it's just who do you have and how do you block them? But we just got to keep pressing that and week in and week out. And like I said, this just goes back to the kids. I mean, I haven't taken a snap in, thank God, in 16, 17 years, right? This is all these guys putting all the work in, and just it's our job as coaches to try to put them in the best situation to do that. And it helps when you have big, strong, athletic guys. You have guys that are craving the answers to the test before they take the test, those types of things. So I think all of those build the confidence so that when the play is called, they go out and make the play when their number's called.
Right next door, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Coach Day's talked a lot about your kind of vision that's wider than just the offensive line, and I assume that comes from your time at UCLA and what you were doing there. How have you seen that maybe help your offensive linemen learn the game more than just, okay, I need to block this guy in front of me?
I think just probably the teaching component of how much do I need to give those guys on a certain play. Like we're not going to ask, Matt Jones to know the rotation of the coverage to the boundary and those things, right? So I think as a staff, just as we talk, and once again, it's just putting the guys in the best situation where we can attack the defensive structure that week, and then breaking it down kind of into the Cliff Notes version, or the, you know, as we say, trimming the fat a lot with our guys. What do I need to give to the tackles, to the guards, to the center, saying, okay, on this formation or this set, look for this because this could be coming. So I think just the, you know, the funneling of the information, you know, probably helps. But I've always really tried to do that. You know, I mean, the longer you do coach and get around and been able to be in the pass game and the throw game and skill guys and big guys, I think it's more of a, you know, that recipe of like, what does it need here? Need a little extra sugar, a little extra salt, whatever that is, and just knowing what to give those guys so that they can go play really fast and really physical and really hard.
Back at the wall, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
Justin, when you guys are in practice, who are the defensive linemen that come in and regularly give you the biggest fits? And, you know, is there something that you are getting out of practice that you guys maybe aren't getting in games just in this first half of this season?
Well, I think Ryan does a really good job structuring the practice, especially early in the week. Like, you get some good on good reps, or you get those 1 versus 2s where the speed of the game is important. I've been places before and in our past where you get to scout worn down or laid in, and you kind of get into a little bit of malaise, and all of a sudden the speed of the game jumps on you. So, I mean, all of the guys. I mean, for the tackles, the guards, the centers, having to block our defensive line, an inside drill, and good on good matchups and those things we do. They're just putting really good reps in the bank. So that they can draw back on those for the speed of the game. But I mean, right now Larry's doing an unbelievable job of same deal. He's coaching really good players with good technique and good fundamentals, and then the good players are going and making those plays.
Do your guys hold JT as much as the opposition does?
No, we never hold. I mean, I don't. Yeah, we don't coach holding.
Deep right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Road.
Justin, I asked you in May about Paris and his first start. Excuse me. Like to say, I don't think he's given up a sack in his career at Ohio State. Are you ever amazed at that stat? And do you see things from him that you wanted to see when we talked in the spring? Have you seen those things from him that make you think, yeah, he's an elite offensive tackle?
Yeah, I mean, his skill set he's the same as we started, you know, back with Dave in the beginning. Like, every week he's challenging himself to be better, to do things. He's going to see the things that he didn't do as well on tape the week before, and then, you know, I've got my plan of attack for what it is, knowing twofold that that's what needs to be done, and secondly, he's going to hit me up like, hey, coach, I was down a little bit on this. What drills can we do this week to create that or clean that up? So, yeah, I mean, I think he's playing really good ball right now. And every week that's our job to make sure he plays better and better and better. Once again, I mean, he's got a really high skill set, so that's just our job as coaches, and then my job to make sure that he plays that way by giving him the right technique, the right fundamentals, the right schemes, and then on Saturdays just they go let loose and they go play that way, because when you're big and strong and fast and you play that way, then you're not going to get beat a lot, right? And when you do make those mistakes, you know, it's not, oh, something's wrong in the cosmic universe, or it's, why did that happen? Was my first step wrong? Was the identification wrong? Was it the back end of a block? And so kind of just cleaning up the issues that you have there, and then make sure you're not repeating those offenses, you know, and he's been into all that. I mean, that's his whole world, is he's watched the tape, he's taken notes, he's got questions as to why something didn't go, why it was, or, hey, I made this call, was that right? Because here's why I thought that. And then he's just continued to grow that way.
You have as much fun coaching him as you sound like you do right now?
I love coaching all these guys because of that. I mean, you show up, and it's not a chore and it's not a task. Like, that's your job as a coach, to improve your guys. But when they're craving it as much as you are, then it's a ton of fun.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Justin, Ryan a couple times this year has described the run game as well targeted, and I'm wondering what that means for your guys up front when he says that, and how much of an emphasis that's been for you guys this year.
It's a weekly process, because the structures, it's twofold. You see structures week in and week out that they put on tape, and then everybody's going to try to throw something at you to throw you a curveball. And so you got to give the kids tools to, if there is a look that might be a little different than what you've seen, how do we make sure we're still, you know, blocking the 6 or the 7 or the 5 guys we're targeted to? And that comes through film study, that comes through the tip sheets, that comes through walkthroughs. And our guys, I mean, we go all the way through the end of the week by Thursday and Friday, where they're really feeling comfortable about all the looks that they could see, because you don't know what you're going to get. You know, but I mean, that's ultimately what you're striving for, because, as I said before too, like, who do you have and how do you block them? It all starts that way. Ryan says it all the time, especially to young guys. If you don't know who you're supposed to block, then how can you have any success, right? And that sounds so simple and so elementary, but that's the starting point. And so for us, we've got to make sure that we understand what front we're facing, who the identification is, and then what technique do you use to block who you have. And we just harp on that because you're timed to task of, once again, you know, really good players playing really hard and really fast. Well, if we block the right guys and we leave the safety for the backs, then the backs run over the safety. If we protect the right people and pass off a twist because we know it's coming, then CJ drops back in rhythm and throws the ball and gets it down the field to all the guys he's throwing it to. So, you know, just constantly harping and having them become habitual with communication. How many downs, who do we have, and then where do we go from there, and not just assuming things or blocking looks or guessing. If we're all on the same page, it's the wrong page, at least we're blocking 5 guys, and that's where you turn those could be negative yardage runs into the ugly 1 or 2s. And I think we've done a good job with that, kind of eliminating the wholesale negative play so far this year.
Far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
You've had some kind of snappy sayings there. Is there one that you use more often than trim the fat or extra sugar, extra salt?
I should use those for me because it's a training table. I get a little heavy during the season, right? I need to trim some of that fat and less sugar and probably more salt to stay hydrated. But you got to give guys things to latch on to in teaching, like just overall humans learning like groups of 3 and things of 3, right? So with that, I mean, trimming the fat, that's when the kid starts talking. Well, I thought I saw this, so I was thinking this, and that. Well, we've all played the game. Like, you don't have time to stand at the line of scrimmage and think those 9 things. Yeah. All right, it's 4 down. There's the point. He's here. I'm doing this, and then go execute at a high level. Right. So that's just kind of the mindset that we use in the room of, you know, you're going to paint this big picture, right? You got to start with little brush strokes there. So what is that? Who's the downs? Who's that guy? Okay, I have 1 from there or 2 from there. I have no one from there. I have help. I don't have help. And then let your technique take you home that way. And just really have, you know, I'm not smart enough to do it any other way. I got to be systematic for myself so that when they ask questions on the sidelines or they come over and say, Coach, that backer bumped out to here, I can draw it up and say, okay, we're going to go to this. And then they grasp onto it. And it's not, well, maybe we'll try this. And because then they're looking at you like, well, shit, if he don't know, then maybe I shouldn't be doing this, right? So, and that's the message delivered to them. But yeah, probably there's a few sayings in there that I have, but they've just become so habitual to us in our room that's common language to us. I like putting up 3 fingers when we score a touchdown. When they see that, they know we're kicking the field goal for the extra point. So that's a good one to throw out.
Front row right, Austin Ward, letter Rivals.
Justin, Matt sort of suggested maybe a couple weeks ago to me that foot was never going to be completely right for him this year. I don't know if that's true or not, or how much to talk about it, but it just seems like he's hurt but not injured, wants to keep playing and battling through it. What have you seen from him physically just to get out there every single week? And then if it does catch up with him at some point, I don't know if it will, what have you thought about Enoch and Frye coming in to help there? Yeah,
I think that the first part of your question, simple, is Matt's like a lot like we talk with Paris and Donnie and those guys. Like, Matt's never played like a full season. And so Matt's learning what it feels like to really be the guy all the time, right? You know, I've told all those guys, the minute you play major college football, you're never going to wake up in the morning feeling great ever again. You're going to crack your ankles or your wrist or your elbow or something because it's the nature of the position, right? So I think more than that, he's just learning that's kind of what the game is. It's not hampered him at all. I mean, he's playing really well. You know, still moving guys in a run game when we're asking him to, protection-wise, coming off and doing some things. So not any big issue there. And then, yeah, I mean, the big thing with those other guys you talked about is just creating depth with all those young guys. And we've been fortunate enough now where we've gotten a lot of those reps that are late in the game where guys are up in the true double digits, almost triple digits, getting some good gradable tape and being able to go play the game. And so you're always trying to, whether it be in practice reps or one-on-one pass rush versus Larry's guys, where you're trying to build that depth so that if the next guy up mentality happens, that guy's going to go in and continue to help you win the game. I mean, Enoch's done that twice for us already this year. I mean, when in the Notre Dame game, Matt got, you know, I think his shoe popped off when he got rolled up on and he couldn't go, and Enoch goes in on a critical situation, and we run a GT counter, and he pulls and kicks the guy out, and we rush it for 10, 12 yards in the red zone. And then he runs off the field. So being ready to make your play when your number's called. I mean, that goes back to, you know, some of the sayings, Clay, we're talking about here, like, that's competitive excellence. That's the definition of it on film. He did it again this week. Same deal. Matty's shoe popped off, and all of a sudden he's running off holding the shoe. Enoch goes in, and we slide to the right, pick up a twist game, and we hit Mecca for a touchdown. So, you know, staying ready and being ready. He's done a really good job with that, and just continuing to play and build, because you never know when your number is going to get called.
Matt needs to just stop wearing that gigantic shoe.
Yeah, you might be onto something there.
Right next door, Tim May, Letterman Row.
You just touched on what I want to ask you about. You also said you think y'all are doing a good job of this, but the games that they're playing up front defensively, y'all have seem to be doing a pretty good job of quick awareness, et cetera. I mean, that just, I know that comes from reps and teaching and stuff, but you still got to react right now of what's going on, right? How that group is doing it. I mean, Saturday was I thought a clinic in some respects on that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, we'll put that on this guy's list too. They did a good job. You know, we saw some movement, some stuff. That goes back to what Byrne was saying though too. I think of like as you build those reps with those guys, and then the comfort, right? So then now at practice, we're practicing against, you know, Jack and Zach and JT and inside, and trying to block Mike Hall and these guys. And Jerron's played a lot of ball, so big, strong-handed guys. So you're getting some reps on top that maybe aren't on film, but you still can touch a little bit, so that if it does show up. And so for us in line play, what is that? Yeah, if you can move some stunts and some movements up front on top of just lining up in an over or under front, you know, we're able to do that now with our guys, because they've got banked reps and they understand the speed of the game, and they have some of those things, so it's not flashing on them for the first time and then you're drawing it up saying, oh, right? Maybe you haven't drawn that exact twist game up, but they're accustomed twists, because you know, it's hard to block. Like I said, you got JT and Jack Sawyer all of a sudden mugging up there in practice, and you're working on a twist game against full speed guys that way. It makes it a little easier to handle it on Saturday.
And one quick, Jeff. You know, you can have a big guy and you can teach power and you can demand physical play and stuff, but it looks like this front relishes lining up and just knocking somebody back. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Where would you rate them in that realm? Because one of the things, obviously, Ryan wanted to get fixed was the physical aspect, you know, in some games from last year to now. But how would you rate this line on that realm right now?
I mean, we rate it every week, and so the toughness and the finish, and we grade plus blocks versus knockdowns and things, and we've graded well every week. But you have to, that's kind of in the realm of toughness itself. Like, you have to bring that every week. You don't play tough one week and then forever you're a tough team. Like, when your number's called, you got to make the play. Like, toughness for me Saturday was 4th and short at the -40, and we made the call, the guys executed the call, and then the next play we go down and we score a 50-some yard pass play. So that's toughness in itself, as opposed to maybe mauling a guy all the time or breaking a guy's back over a pile and those things. But it's a week-by-week thing that you just, once again, you got to hamper. If you don't see it on tape and you see a guy pull the parachute or stop early, you got to tell him about it, right? If you see a guy that does it well, then you got to highlight that and say, we need more of this and here's why. And then they feed off of that, so that it doesn't become something that they're looking for in a situation of like, oh, I have to do this now, but it starts kind of becoming habitual for those guys. So, you know, week by week, that's how you judge it. You know, and circling back to the beginning of it, you have to start there. You can't just put a stamp on it and say, well, now we're tough, right? Because we did X, Y, and Z. You got to do it every week.
Right behind him, Doug Lamreese, Cleveland.com.
When you guys are in your offensive game planning meetings each week, just what are the ideas like in there? What's Ryan like in there leading the show? What's it like with everybody collaborating? Just can you describe that, your first year here? What's it been like?
Have you seen the movie The Hangover? When he's coming down the escalator and there's pi times radius squared, and all of a sudden there's all these ideas and stuff that start flowing. No. That's a bad joke. So, yeah. So, I would say just it's fun because we all see through the same lenses and we all speak the same language. So it's from a staff starting point. Like, we know what our guys are good at, the skill sets that they're good at, and how do we find those plays to get them into, whether that be formationally, whether that be personnel grouping. Those are all things that week in and week out, doesn't matter who you're playing, you got to kind of, you know, vet through those things. And then as you start, once again, we use again trimming the fat and going through they're all good plays. Like, you're never going to put up a play on the board and be like, this is a crap play, let's run this, right? They're all good, but if you get spread too thin or you're too heavy one way, that's not good. So we just do a good job of, like I said, looking through the lenses of, all right, what are we good at? How do we need to attack this coverage? How do we need to attack this formation? And then what is good within that based on the skill set of what our guys can do? And then you just kind of piece it together that way. And then as you go through the week, the kids are heavily involved in it too. I mean, you present, we like this and this, and all of a sudden, you know, Luke Whippler may come back and be like, hey, coach, I really feel good about doing this block on this one versus this. Is that something we can look at? And then you say, yeah, we can adjust that, or you know what, that's too difficult. You know what, it's too much thought process in it. Let's take it out because it's, you know, time to test that way. So, but that's a weekly deal based on who you're playing and the defensive structure and, you know, who's in the game plan, who's playing, who's not playing. Those are all things that we have to look through. But but it's fun. Early in the week, yeah, it's a lot of fun because you're watching a lot of ball, you're watching a lot of tape, you're getting a better feel for what's coming at you, and then you try to attack yourself early in the week in practice so that by Saturday the guys can go out and execute those plays.
Guys, we're not going to be able to get through everyone, but we'll go a few more. Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, Justin, speaking of Luke, he said one of the things he likes about you is the way that you've been able to tailor coaching to each individual player, not just the position, the skill set, personality. You just got here, you know, this year. Can you describe the challenge of doing that, and what was your kind of strategy for doing that?
Challenge in positive connotation, I would say, because that's what, once again, in coaching, that's what you're supposed to do. Just early on, getting a feel. You got to find a common ground for each kid and who they are, what they're about, what pushes them, how do they react to certain situations or certain things, and then ultimately just coaching those guys. So as you know, I've alluded to a couple times, like so that at 4th and 1 at the 50-yard line, everybody does their job, right? If the left tackle and the center needed hot pink tip sheets because that's why they see it better, and the right guard needs 72 walkthrough reps, and the right tackle needs yelled at this many times or, you know, fired up on this, whatever you have to do to get those guys to do their job, that is your job as a coach, right? Because as I said, like I haven't taken a snap in a long time, and the ones that I did back in the day at the end they were pretty rough anyway, so it's probably a good thing, right? So, but that's the fun challenge in coaching is understanding your guys, coaching your guys, getting them to go maximize themselves, and then when they have success, like you feel good about that because you've helped them do what they want to go do, right? And that sounds super cheesy, but that's just the fact. That's why college football is fun still that way, because big, strong, I mean, DeJuan Jones walks through the door frame and he's huge, but he's still just a 21-year-old guy. He's still just a young man learning and growing. And Paris, and I mean, all these guys, they do all this stuff. Matt Jones is a 5th-year guy. You say, oh, he's an old veteran. I mean, he's 22 years old, right? 23 years old. Like, he got a lot left to him. So finding the ways to help those guys maximize themselves, but ultimately for us to win the games, that's the fun challenge in it, Bill.
3rd row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Justin, you guys have done a lot of different things in the run game this year that Ohio State wasn't doing last year. What has your role been in kind of helping bring some of those ideas to the table in the run game?
Well, it's not so much me. It just goes back to what we talked about before, like game planning. Like I think the skill set of the guys that we have and what we can do, and we're able to do at a high level, you try to find those year in and year out, right? And so, I mean, just as you go through the room, I mean, you look at all those guys in the staff room. It's not just me, but I mean, Tony's coached a lot of good backs, and they've run it a lot of different ways, whether it be inside zone, outside zone, some pin and pulls, some zone reads. I mean, there's a lot of experience in there. You know, obviously, you know, when Ryan and I were together before, I mean, we were in the 50-yard line and 32 personnel a lot of the time. So I think just the mix of everyone in that room having expertise of history of what they've done and how they've done it, and then able to kind of, you know, tailor that to our guys that we have now has been the biggest part. So, me, nothing. I mean, I got to get the 5 guys up front to play really hard and block the right guys. If it's my idea one week, or it's somebody's this, or it's collectively us, it doesn't matter as long as we're doing it at a high level right now. And that's what we say. That's what we judge week in and week out to make sure that when we're supposed to run it, we run it. When we're supposed to protect, we do it. And that's a whole group effort versus just me rolling in a room.
Right in front of him, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
The 4th and short, you didn't get it on the 3rd and 2 the time before that, and then obviously the quarter ends. Are you harping on run that ball again? It's just because 4th and 1, and just because of the way you talked about needing to be able to run the ball when everybody knows running the ball. So you may be harping on that.
Well, you just have to have a call ready to go that if that's the situation that's needed, then you're comfortable with the kids. I mean, we didn't call a bad call on 3rd and short that we didn't get. We just, you know, you got to execute it better, whatever it may be. But then on to the next play. Like, you know, in that case, when Coach Day's standing over there and we're all talking on the headsets, what do we like? Where do we want to go? He's got a mindset of what he wants to do, what he wants to call, but you just need to have something available that you know your guys are going to execute well because they have confidence in it. They've done it during the week. They've seen the looks. And so, yeah, you got to have something in your pocket ready to go, if, you know, as we talk about as a staff, and just so that the kids can go do it.
And final question, front row, middle here, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
DeJuan came into this year a little lighter than he was before. Just what have you made of his first 6 games?
Same deal. I mean, I think he's playing football higher level than he ever has because he wants to, right? Just like you said, all those things that may be little things as a younger guy or that you don't know are big things, as you start playing more, become big things. So being able to keep your weight down so that you can play faster and you're not as fatigued late in the game, being able to, stay after practice and get some pass sets or some extra work that he wants to work on with his hips or his hands or his feet or whatever it may be. The run drills in practice. I think just the drills and the work as you grow up and you mature and you start seeing the big picture become more important. Not that they weren't before, but the understanding of why am I doing this rep, and then the application of this rep in an individual drill or versus the defensive line, and where does that apply to a game. I think the maturity, that part of it, where he sees that, or he'll ask, hey coach, can I get one more of these because I'm not comfortable on the back side of this, or front side of this, I want to get that. So I'd say he's getting better every week and playing good ball every week because he wants to and it's important to him, and he's training that way. And that's a really good workman's mindset to have as you go through the season, because a lot of guys will, all of a sudden it gets hard and you get into it and then you want to plateau a little bit, or you don't know the challenges and get a little fatigued. Whereas these guys right now, they understand we got to incrementally get a little better, a little better, a little better every week, in the technique and the physicality and the toughness and all those things, because that's when you can really separate yourself from a lot of other teams that maybe start to plateau or lose some guys to injury. That you can double separate because you're continuing to get better and they've stopped. Right, so your rate's going up as fast as it is, on top of separating yourself even more from teams that maybe can't sustain that.
Coach, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.